Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Wednesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First, hazardous weather graphic. What we've got going on is a couple of things here for the Kenai Peninsula. One, the dense smoke advisory is out for tonight and into early Thursday for areas of dense smoke again from the fires, reducing visibilities maybe as low as 3/4 of a mile possibly. And also there's a flood advisory out for Kenai Lake and the Kenai River from Cooper Landing to Ski Lac Lake, and that's out until about noontime on Friday for high water levels and possible minor flooding during that time, again from Cooper Landing to Ski Lac Lake. And from there, fire danger, about the same as yesterday, although it's starting to do a slow fade over the Kenai Peninsula here, probably losing the very high, falling into the high, but still elevated there from, especially around the rest of the state. And that extends on up into the Sinton Valley, Turnagain Arm, of course, very arid, and Matanuska Valley as well, and then the valley here in the Copper River Basin. That's about it. Everywhere else, fire danger's in pretty good shape, or a lack of it. And for satellite imagery, here's a system up here that's slowly exiting, heading toward the border there, and rain tapering off today. Rain and snow, depending on your elevation and the time of day and your latitude, whether that fell as snow or rain. And anyway, amounts were lighter today, but still in the last 12 hours, about 1/3 of an inch fell. Some areas here up over toward the Yukon Flats. And Eagle picked up, they picked up about 1/1500ths of an inch of rain. Roughly the same at Fairbanks. It's ended there now. These are 12-hour amounts again. And otherwise, as I mentioned, a little bit heavier up, Helmet Mountain had about 1/3 of an inch of rain or precipitation, some of which fell in the form of snow. We've got some more moisture here with another weak disturbance coming onto the western and central Arctic coast there, with some definitely clouds, lower flying conditions, and some areas of light precipitation and fog, and some clouds here across the Seward Peninsula in toward St. Lawrence Island, really not producing too much in the way of precipitation. And then sunshine here breaking out over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area, maybe northern Bristol Bay. Clouds for Kodiak. Temperatures tried to push 70 degrees this afternoon here in the sunshine over the southwest part of the state. Same thing for the Kenai Peninsula, and Sinton Valley as well, with 71 degrees at Big Lake, the warm spot in the state. Temperatures also were approaching 70 over in the Copper River Basin. And rain slowly tapering off here over the southeast coast during the day today. Again, still some fairly decent amounts. Cake picked up 1/2 inch today, and Petersburg about 1/3 of an inch, with lighter amounts everywhere else. And you can see this system here swinging into Canada now, the low pressure area, and kind of getting some bent back around, or in the bent back occlusion, what's left of it, hanging the clouds and the moisture in. But that's all slowly shifting off, but already you're seeing the clouds build out here to the west with the next system here that's south of the Alaska Peninsula, and those clouds spreading up to Kodiak Island, and rain will be right on the heels of it. And that moisture is spreading eastward, and it actually brings a chance of rain back to the central and south coast of the Panhandle late tonight, and then that'll just increase throughout the day, along with the winds for the day on Thursday. And we had some areas of light rain here with this cloud mass back along the Alaska Peninsula. Heaviest amount was about 1,300, which isn't much at all. Accoon Island and other locations had less than that, and just clouds over the Aleutians and the southern Bering Sea. Some breaks farther to the north. On the chart today, here's that next low center. It's about 983 millibar low center just south of the Alaska Peninsula. Areas of light rain, fog, and drizzle occurring from the Fox Islands up into the Alaska Peninsula there, but nothing heavy at all. Some areas didn't really report much at all. And so most of that moisture already off to the east there. Had the areas of smoke continuing, but not as bad as it had been here over the Kenai Peninsula, well, at least where I was today in Anchorage. And sunshine, and again, as I mentioned, temperatures rising 65 to 70 degrees in some locations here over the southwest interior. Also had some clear skies up, it looks like in the Koyukuk Valley with this system that brought the rain and snow overnight last night. We had the winter storm warning, winter weather advisories out. That's ended. This is slowly tapering off and will be about over toward morning. Otherwise, another weak system coming onto the western Arctic coast, quite weak again, low clouds, fog scattered around the Bering Sea, as well as some clearing scattered around the Bering Sea there. And this trough tonight will just leave the area there. It'll actually just keep on going across British Columbia. Isolated showers pretty much will end there over the southeast coast. As I mentioned, this moisture streaming eastward will bring a slight chance of rain to the central coast of the Panhandle, mostly Port Alexander, maybe to Sitka. And if it does begin to rain before morning, it won't amount to very much. The heavier rain still back out here to the west. Low center just about to move across south of Sitkinak there. So periods of rain for Kodiak Island. Look for partly to mostly cloudy or variably cloudy here with light winds over southern Alaska, maybe a little more clearing out over the southwest interior like you had today. And the shower threat really diminishing just toward morning, say 3, 4 in the morning here. This is about the extent of the precipitation over the interior. And even this trough up here, that'll just be drizzle, maybe light rain, fog with that, IFR flying conditions. Not bad, dry for the Seward Peninsula, maybe a few breaks in the overcast, as well as maybe even for St. Lawrence Island. But I look for some fog for the Bering Strait area to St. Lawrence Island, anywhere out over the Bering Sea, looking for IFR flying conditions. And this trough right through here, pretty weak, but that could enhance maybe the drizzle and fog, and that's kind of poised to drop down on the Pribilofs. And another weak trough just keeps it unsettled. Wind's not a factor at all out over the Aleutians there from the Alaska Peninsula on out to Shemya, actually all the way out to Shemya. And for the outlook for tomorrow, we still have this weak trough and low center here. The low center near the central Aleutians, about 1,008 millibars, no gradient associated with it at all. It's just going to keep the IFR in, clouds, occasional light rain, maybe drizzle. Areas of fog, though, up to the north, maybe a pickup in the winds through the Bering Strait, maybe gusts 25 miles per hour. Places like Tin City, windier areas, could maybe see 28 miles an hour. But again, nothing too serious, and that might definitely a high-end forecast there. And then this system, both at the surface and the loft here over the central interior, that'll make for mostly cloudy conditions with at least a few showers around, especially in the afternoon. It'll kick them off. Probably not any thunderstorm activity. And rain, fog, and drizzle, cloudy skies for the Arctic coast, especially the east side. That's slowly slipping off to the east. Another one, though, right on its heels, coming southeastward, brings a chance of rain into the coastline during the afternoon, late afternoon. Wind and rain on the increase here for the Panhandle. That low center tracking northeastward starts to slow down. So we'll see on Friday, the low center is still off the coast, starting to weaken a little. The front pushes into British Columbia. So it's going to make for good solid rain overnight Thursday night, and then Friday too it'll rain but begin to diminish and taper off over the southern Panhandle, and the rainfall rates will lessen over the northern areas, but you still have a trough off the coast here with the low center, so it probably won't end altogether too soon. But partly to mostly sunny here for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island again as the flow becomes west-northwesterly once again. Scattered showers here with partly mostly cloudy skies up along mainly the Alaska Range. And then a cold front drops down and brings brings more rain and fog and probably IFR there for the Arctic coast into the North Slope. A couple of weak troughs here, eastern Bering Sea with not much action with them. Otherwise high pressure farther to the west. Lows for tonight in the 30s to a little shade below freezing there for the eastern Brooks Range. 40s to the west and 40s lower 50s to the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow about like today, 65 or into the 60s here at Bristol Bay. On up into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Nikolai, McGrath, 60s, mid-60s for the Sinton Valley. Could push 71 again in the warmer locations, 50s for the Panhandle, 40s North Slope. Lows the following morning, again, just dropping a little below freezing there in the Brooks Range with Anaktuvik and, Arctic Village. Forecast to drop to 31, upper 40s to lower 50s there for the Panhandle. High shaping up like this, 65 to 70 again over the southwest interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for Thursday morning. Good VFR here, much of interior Alaska. Marginal VFR, kind of a combination again of the lower cloud deck and the smoke from the fires in the Kenai Peninsula up into the Susitna Valley. Otherwise, VFR, Prince William Sound, marginal VFR Kodiak Island here, and marginal VFR there, kind of on the decrease there over the southeast coast, at least for a short while. Out west here, a lot of IFR over the Bering Sea, much of the Aleutians, and Bristol Bay, VFR, right on up to St. Lawrence Island with IFR, central western Arctic coast, part of the North Slope. Marginal VFR, though, right down to the crest of the Brooks Range, maybe spilling over a little bit. And for the afternoon, got IFR filling in up here for just almost as far south as the marginal VFR here on out to the Arctic coast and ocean. Marginal IFR, St. Lawrence Island, then marginal here along the Yukon Delta coast, still VFR, Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, until you get to about, I guess just west of Cold Bay goes marginal, and then immediately IFR over the Fox Islands, all the way out to the Komodorskis. And lingering possible marginal VFR, Kenai Peninsula due to the smoke. Otherwise, you see quite an area of IFR with that next storm system pushing right up along the central and south coast of the Panhandle in the afternoon, otherwise marginal right over to the border. And then for Friday morning, IFR, Southern Panhandle, marginal VFR to the north, VFR for the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, good portion of the interior until you get up toward the Brooks Range once again, and then IFR roughly from, I'll say Prudhoe Bay or so, back to the west, New Exit and Wainwright in those areas, Atchison, to probably Point Hope, marginal for Kivalina, Seward Peninsula, and mostly IFR out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And for the afternoon, we'll see IFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians again, kind of surrounded by a marginal VFR zone there that covers most of the Alaska Peninsula. And then you get into the VFR again for the Aleutian Range, Kodiak Island, VFR. Marginal VFR here with some moisture, upper level low moisture, upper level low tight moisture. Could be areas of marginal VFR along the Alaska Range there, and then the smoke over the Kenai Peninsula. IFR or marginal at best over the southeast coast. And for passes, Anatuvik, we've got VFR, the pass and south, marginal VFR pretty likely on the northern entrance. And Adigan as well, marginal VFR out the north side there. Could be a little bit farther to the south, but will definitely be VFR out the south side. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, another VFR day coming up. Rainy, same forecast, VFR. VFR for Windy, Isabel, and Mentasta, but the Sealing's visibilities won't be unlimited. Mentasta, VFR, and Portage, or I'm sorry, Tanita, also VFR. Now Portage, VFR, and for Chilkoot and White, yet another VFR day for those two areas. And for the freezing levels, about 6,000 feet here over the southeast coast there with that cooler trough in over the area that kind of moving out. And then the thermal ridging ahead of the next storm, that'll be pushing eastward into the afternoon quite rapidly with the next storm and the winds and rain increasing. Otherwise, 2,000 feet up along the Arctic coast, 6,000 feet through the central interior. And we lost even the 12,000 foot freezing level now, just 10,000 over the central Aleutians, otherwise about 6 to 8 here farther to the north. Icing, none out west, Bering Sea, Aleutians, icing free, even much of the interior. Occasional moderate chop, I'm talking turbulence, considerable moderate rime icing here, increasing and pushing up to the central and south coast with light to isolated moderate rime icing all the way up into Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, back to the west here into eastern Prince William Sound, and then a couple of zones here along the Arctic coast and North Slope with some disturbances tracking southeastward. And the jet stream, upper level low complex up here over the northern part of the state, one in the Gulf coming eastward, slamming into the Panhandle tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then one just south of the central Aleutians. 9,000 feet, winds increasing here across the southeast coast, along and off the coast during the day, pushing inland in the evening, as high as 45 knots, and call it 25 to 35 or 40 knots here along the coast in the latter part of the afternoon for the southeast coast, and that translates into an area of considerable moderate chop here along the central and south coast, Prince of Wales Island area.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires.
Okay.
There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere, and F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
Right.
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind.
Right.
It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low-pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where
Right.
the smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image.
Right.
So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light.
Okay.
You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 micron.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one? Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn.
Okay.
And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit,
Right.
and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
That is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's
Amazing.
3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters on where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is.
Okay.
You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time.
Yeah.
You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or a succession of images. Now this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before.
Right.
And that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is.
Okay.
You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, you got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. Another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the day-night band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We've got all this darkness. The day-night band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time.
Right.
It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we
Fair
can
enough.
talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again kind of a horseshoe shape showing that active fire front down there, and then we'll look again to the day-night band, the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rimfire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year.
Right.
That was, you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure, sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. See you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to today's sea ice analysis. Not much different from yesterday, and the forecast pretty simple for the next 5 days, just kind of a slow thaw continuing or melt, and really the main ice edge will just be kind of oscillating around depending on the winds and the currents. So not a lot of big changes at all. In fact, not a lot of small changes either. And for the coastal water forecast, that next storm coming in, gale warnings come back up. Central south coast, 40 knots out of the southeast. Clarence Strait kicking up to 30 knots, increasing to 30 knots from the southeast. Seas building to 6 feet. Seas 14 feet in the south coast. And we've got sustained gales as you go up the coastline here out of the east, and then small craft advisory winds, sustained 25, but gale force gusts also on the north coast there. So pretty windy afternoon coming up for the entire stretch of the coastline. Lynn Canal, south 20, southeast 20 for Stevens Passage. And for Friday, 25 knot southerly winds now for the south coast, 13-foot seas, and east 30 diminished to 20 as the farther north you go up the coastline. And north 10, much lighter for Lynn Canal, southeast 20 for Stevens Passage, and southeast 25. So small craft advisories continue through the day Friday for Clarence Strait with 8-foot seas. East winds 25 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, seas 7 feet. Prince William Sound east at 15, 3-foot seas. Northeast 20 for the western North Gulf Coast, east 20 for the Barrens, east 15, Kamishak Bay, and east winds at 10 knots with just 1-foot seas for Cook Inlet. And really light wind condition continues for Cook Inlet through Friday. Southwest 10, 2-foot seas, west 15, Kamishak Bay, 20-knot west winds for the Barrens and the western North Gulf Coast, seas 8 to 9 feet, northeast, northwest at 15 there for the eastern North Gulf Coast with 10-foot seas. So small craft advisories for sure there, and then light westerlies for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island on the east side, pretty brisk, northeast 30 knots, and small craft advisory winds actually extend all the way from the east side of Kodiak here to Cape Sarachev, but changing direction as you get west of Castle Cape to northwest at 30 with 10-foot seas, north 15 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, and northwest 15 for Bristol Bay. And for the outlook on Friday, northwest 15 for Bristol Bay continues all the way down to Cape Sarachev here along the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. South side, light westerlies at 10 knots, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, west 15, and that pattern, that wind direction and speed all the way up the east side of Kodiak Island. Shelikof Strait just southwest of 15. Fox Islands tomorrow, north to northwest, 10 to 15 knots, seas running anywhere from 4 to 8 feet. And the central Aleutians, light on the winds there, northeast at 10 to 15 knots with 6 to 8 foot seas, and then 20-knot winds west of Adak all the way out to Shimianat-2. And then those will drop down to 15 knots from the north on Friday with 5-foot seas, north to northeast 15, 3 to 6 foot seas here For the AKwx area and the Fox Islands, not too bad. North to northwest at 15 knots with seas 4 to 7 feet. Southwest coast, north 15 to 20 knots, north 15 for the Pribilofs, north 20 knots for St. Matthew Island. Small craft advisory St. Lawrence Island with the winds sustained at 25 from the north. And then for Friday, Norton Sound, north 20, small craft advisory continue St. Lawrence Island right down along the Yukon Delta coast. South of Nunivak Island, though, north at 20. Same thing for the Pribilofs, north winds 20 knots, northwest at 20 with 6-foot seas for St. Matthew Island. Eastern Boulevard Sea coast, east or west-northwest, 15 knots, north 15 on the central coast, and north 20 from Point Lay all the way down to Cape Thompson, and then small craft advisories, Cape Thompson to Wales, north 25. Outlook for Friday, that continues there from Wales up to Cape Thompson, 25-knot northerlies, and then from Cape Thompson up to all the way to the central coast. North winds 20 knots, seas 6 to 7 feet, and west 15 here for the eastern coastline to demarcation point. Seas 3 to 4 feet. For tonight again, weak trough passing by up there, so clouds, maybe some drizzle, fog, but nothing serious. Winds definitely light. Diminishing showers over the interior are going to be pretty tough to find toward morning. And same thing for the Panhandle, but rain poised to move in. It'll be a wet night eventually there for Kodiak tonight, and fair in the interior. Tomorrow, some scattered showers at that low in the central interior. Alaska range, rain and wind, gale force winds come back into the southeast coast. And rain will start to change the showers throughout the afternoon for Kodiak Island. And for the outlook on Friday, rain for the Panhandle and also up here over the North Slope and the Arctic coast with that front. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.